Hey guys, let's talk Rogue One. Now, the much anticipated film, the one that veers away from the saga films, finally is upon us. We've been a few weeks into it, and the critics' consensus was, well, mixed to say the least. It has its positives, and the guys that do like the movie tend to call it the best of the series. Now, I don't necessarily agree with that. I also don't think it's the worst, which also some critics like to lean heavily on. Now, there are some good and there is some bad in this movie, which ultimately leads it to a very mediocre movie, in my opinion. One that has some strong points, but definitely has some points holding it back. So let's go over some of that. Now, visually, this movie is outstanding. And I knew it from the first day I saw the trailer that this movie was going to look different. And it does. Now, Star Wars is always a series of movies that I always kind of considered pretty glossy. I mean, literally Stormtroopers and Darth Vader are glossy looking characters. And I've always wanted something that was a little bit grittier, a little bit more raw, a little bit more like a war story. And fortunately, that's something this movie nails. From start to finish, it just feels different. And it is actually really stunning to look at. And it really stood out to me right off the bat that this was going to feel different throughout it. And it really does. It nails it on all those points. So visually, Rogue One is great. Now also, the last third of the film is some of my favorite Star Wars moments I think I've ever seen. I was actually talking with a friend and we were talking about that final space battle, and it just felt different and it felt better than anything that I've seen before. And I can't really put a finger on it. Maybe I need to see it a second time to really figure that out. But even the final beach battle scene, and again, it might just feel different because it's on a beach. We've never had a battle on a beach like that. So maybe that's why it feels so different and special, but either way, it just will go down as some of the most memorable moments that I've had in a Star Wars film. So that also, huge plus for this movie. And then finally, at least on the good side here, K2SO, if you guys have not heard or seen, is the droid in this film, kind of the main droid in this film. Kind of a common theme to have a sidekick that does some kind of levity, brings some kind of humor into the movie, and much like BB-8, who I thought was really funny in The Force Awakens, K2SO, in my opinion, is even funnier. He kind of has this dry sense of humor through it, and they kind of perfectly use him in spots, in my opinion, because it is a pretty dark film for the most part, which is kind of a theme, I guess, with some of these recent Star Wars films, but his points where he comes in, to me, are well placed, and it fits perfectly. And he might go down as one of my favorite droids. Now, you always have to be careful here. He is not Jar Jar Binks slapstick heavy kind of humor. He's actually just a funny character, mostly just by good dialogue. But now going on to some of the bad of this movie. Unfortunately, the characters are really forgettable. Really, the whole cast of them are just really, really forgettable, with the exception of K2SO. I tried to go into this and be really forgiving on that front. I try to think that if I went back and saw A New Hope, so brand new characters to me, brand new series to me, would I walk out of that thinking those characters were, well-written, amazing characters? Well, no. You learn to love them over 3 movies, and they're able to develop them over 3 movies. Well, this movie really doesn't have that luxury. Disney's been pretty open in saying that there's not going to be a Rogue One sequel. This is going to be it. So this was their chance to shine. This was their chance to really kind of do something special, and unfortunately, it just doesn't work. They're just not a lot of memorable moments with them. It's hard to remember even really good dialogue between them or really good motivations for what they're doing in the movie. It's kind of just a straightforward, we're going this way, we're going this way, we're going this way, without kind of that stuff you need to stick that team together, and that really hurts it. And it was unfortunate to see that because I had a lot of hopes for that. The middle of the movie, a lot of people walked out of there complaining that it was like really, really dull in the middle. Although, if I think back on this movie, it was action-packed from front to back. It always stayed pretty action-packed. The middle loses it because it's not memorable moments of action. It's kind of just action for the sake of being action, or movement for the sake of being movement. And again, that's unfortunate. You had some potential for it. There's an interesting dynamic between Jin and her father taking place to that middle part of the film that I really hoped to have seen kind of go to another level, and could have been fascinating, but instead they kind of just go for just simple action scenes that I just think ultimately don't work out. And then just kind of one minor complaint to tag on here, and I don't know if this will be a spoiler for anyone, so if it is, I'm sorry, you can stop it. But Diego Luna's character, the introduction scene with him, he does something that is really jarring, and does not seem to match his character, and there is zero explanation on what just happened there. And I think you could have had a reason or something to explain for that, but it is super bizarre when you think about the grand scheme of that film on why they had to introduce his character doing that thing. Again, if you've seen it, you might remember it. You might have even forgotten about it. And if you haven't seen it, you'll know what I'm talking about when you get there. But yeah, ultimately, this is a movie that has some of the best Star Wars I've ever seen. And it has some really, really forgettable stuff, which just makes it kind of a middle of the pack kind of movie. Sure, I would probably put it in the top 4 Star Wars films. But I do hope they branch off on this visual palette that they put into this movie. And they continue that in future films. Because to me, that was one of the best parts about it. Those battle scenes and everything just looked absolutely outstanding. But yeah, so if you guys haven't seen it, go check it out. It's well worth seeing at least. But if this is enough to turn you off, you can wait until it comes out on video. It's not going anywhere. But anyway, guys, thanks for your time, and until next time.